All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Scott Golden coming to you live from Florida. And as you know from the promoting that I did earlier, I've got a special guest coming on the show tonight, and he really doesn't need an introduction. He is a guy who is well known in the sport of pickleball. He's been around for I know well over 5 years. At the pro level and the senior pro level. He's a 21-time national champion, a 7-time Triple Crown winner at some of the biggest tournaments in our sport. And I'm going to let him also give his background and introduction and how he found pickleball and all that good stuff. But without further ado, we're going to jump right into it. So I'm going to bring Scott Moore on with me. And let's see. Here we go. What's up, Scott?
Hey, Scott. It's good to see you again. I'm just got into Chicago, cruised into my hotel room about 5 minutes ago. So it's great to be here and great to see you again.
Absolutely. And I guess because you've been doing the pro tour for quite a while with pickleball, I'm assuming you're pretty used to the traveling and the way things kind of go. It's pretty smooth sailing at this point.
Not too bad. I was more used to it before COVID kind of slowed that down. But yes, I am a avid traveler both around the country and the world, and love it. It's been a little interesting. Had a little cabin fever. I'll tell you more about that. But being in Colorado Springs the last 6 months, but it's good to get out, definitely.
Yeah, and we're going to jump into some of those details about what you've been doing during the downtime and kind of how you've been operating. I know you well enough to know that you're not a guy that just sits around on the couch and twiddles your thumb. I mean, you stay pretty active, I'm imagining.
Yeah, there is no grass growing under my feet. I checked before I do have trouble sitting still sometimes. That's one of my many faults, but yeah, I like to be active.
And I guess that runs in the family too, right? I mean, as far as your kids and all that, it looks like all you guys stay pretty much on the move.
Yeah, absolutely. My kids keep moving further away, and I tell them, you can run, but you can't hide. I will hunt you down and find you. And
I love it. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, he went on a study abroad to Egypt one time, and so I had to fly around the world to take him out for dinner on the Nile River on his 21st birthday, and we cruised around Egypt, and now he's in Japan, as you know. And so it's fun chasing him. We've been all over Africa together, and both of us have been over 60 countries, so it's been a fun ride. Just
wow. Incredible. Yeah, we're gonna get into all those details, and but let's do this. Let's jump right into it. The thing I like to do with the guests that I bring on my show is I assume that everybody probably knows who you are by now. However, there could be some new people to pickleball who are tuning in for the first time and maybe meeting you, Scott Moore, for the first time. So what I really like to do out of the gate is let you talk about how pickleball found you. That's what I like to say, because I think it comes into each person's life in a different way, in a different form, but we each have a story behind that. And then who is responsible for introducing you to pickleball? And then obviously how long have you been playing pickleball at this point?
Sure. Well, it actually happened at a great time in my life about 8 years ago when I was going through, I'm not going to call it depression, but I was a little feeling sorry for myself because my kids were all gone. It was called Empty Nest, and I wasn't really excited about that because we'd always had kids at home and had hosted foreign exchange students. So we had a total of, 4 of them and 4 kids of our own. So it was like Grand Central Station, our house. All of a sudden, it got real quiet. We had a 6-bedroom house, and it was just Susan and I. And it was like, whoa, this is way too quiet. What are we going to do? And it was about that time a good friend who I'd played volleyball with named John Foss called me and said, Scott, I got a new game I want you to try. It's called Pickleball. And I was like, John, that just doesn't sound like a lot of fun. Pickleball, tell me more about it. He said, well, it's a paddle and a ball. And I said, okay, that's all you got to tell me. Because I had grown up kind of as a racket sport junkie. Anytime I have a racket or paddle in my hand and a ball to hit, I'm kind of a happy camper. So I tried it. It's been almost 8 years ago. And for the first year, we just kind of scraped snow off the courts and lined them with tape and kind of got into it. And then I played in nationals in 2013, and I was totally hooked. I was like, this is my game. I'm going to be a national champion. We actually got second at that tournament, silver medal, and I couldn't sleep. I was so excited about it, and that was my beginning.
At that point, when you got hooked playing at nationals, did you play with your son Daniel at that point, or none of your kids involved?
He was actually still living in Africa. I played with a tennis partner of mine named Ken Curry, who still plays, is one of the top 60 plus players, and we just started really drilling. And his brother couldn't come, so I showed up, and we lost our first match. We almost got lost and got defaulted, and just figured out a way to lose that first one, and then won like 7 straight in the playbacks before we played in the gold medal match against Scott Lennon and Jim Hackenberg, and that was really eye-opening because it was our first tournament, and we were out there learning as we went. But it was an absolute ball, and I after that I was like, man, I am all in.
When you were playing in those matches, did you know how to hit a third shot drop or what those things meant at that time?
No, I didn't know the terms. We just kind of went off instinct. I was sort of playing singles on a doubles court, but we lost the first game, as I recall, to Jim and Scott. And I said, okay, well, I'm going all in this time. And we were up like 4-1 in the second game. I did a great poach, hit a winner, and stepped on the line. And the next time I crossed over poaching, and we were lining up in the wrong position. And so I was just, after the match, like, dang, I got to learn the rules. And I got to, so that haunted me for the next couple months. And then once January 1st of that 2014 hit, I actually hired a trainer, got in shape, started practicing, lost 20 pounds over the next 6 months. And probably the most fortuitous thing of all, Daniel moved home in April that year. And I told him, look, I got this new game. If you will train with me for 6 months, we'll go play nationals and we'll both be national champions, because I've seen the competition and I know we can do it. And I know that you're never going to have another chance to be a national champion. So you can take it or leave it, but someday it'll mean something to you.
and he took you up on it, right?
He took me up on it. And much to my chagrin, after about a month, I was no longer not only the best, not even the best player in Colorado. I wasn't the best player in my own house. He started beating me after about a month, and I was like, dang, dude. And, how do you get so good so quick? And sure enough, we played our first tournament ever was actually the Tournament of Champions. And we showed up there, of course, played the #1 seeds, defending national champions, and beat them in our first match. We'd never played in doubles tournament together. We just were out there, shocking people. They didn't know who we were. And we were, like I said, playing singles on a doubles court, got through it. It was Brian Staub, and they came back and beat us the next time. And we ended up, 4th or 5th. But 2 months later, we really trained hard, learned the game. And at Nationals 2014, we both won 2 gold medals in singles and finished like 4th in doubles. We got beat by Wes and Enrique, 11-8 in the third. They went on to win the gold. And my famous or infamous story, you may have heard this, Scott, was I told Daniel, I said, dude, we don't even know what we're doing in doubles. We'll learn the game. Next year, we will come back. We'll win singles and doubles together. He goes, Dad, I was thinking maybe next year we could play with guys our own age. So I'm the only guy. Leave it to your kids to keep you humble, right? So I introduced myself as the only guy who ever won 2 gold medals at Masters and was dumped by the double in the same tournament. There you go.
Oh man, you know what? Like that's a bittersweet thing right there. I mean, you obviously want to see your son have success and do well, but you were hoping it was with you.
Yeah, exactly. So he breaks my heart, right? And then 2015, we just went on to win everything. He won doubles national title with Matt Blom. I won pretty much everything I played at the senior level. We were named 2015 Player of the Year, Co-Player of the Year by Pickleball Rocks. So I hate to admit it, but he was right, and it was the best thing we could have done because we played, a ton of tournaments and just had a lot of success at our own respective levels, and had a blast and really learned the game in the process.
That's awesome, man. What a cool story. And I know now, because I've been around the sport for about 4 years now, I know that some of your other kids play as well now, right? Don't you have a couple other kids that still compete?
I do. I have 2 younger brothers. One is named John, who started playing about a year and a half ago. And one of my pickleball highlights, actually, because it was really, he hadn't been playing very long, we were leading a trip to Italy with our pickleball trips business and played in the Italian Open together. And we ended up getting in the winners bracket final against a couple of Spanish guys Ernesto, who was a good friend of mine when he lived in Utah, and Carlos. And I did an Ernie at like 10 all and slipped. We were inside court and fractured my wrist. So John had been getting picked on, but he had to really step it up. We lost that match, but came back and won in the gold medal match. And it was like just such a fun experience for him. He kind of came into his own, has since sort of taken over the European division for our pickleball coach business and kind of made him a household name. He wasn't Scott Moore's son or Daniel Moore's little brother anymore. All of a sudden it was John Moore, and they all love him in Europe. And so that's really been fun to see him kind of flourish there. And my youngest, Steven, who's 25, is working really hard. He's taken over our family construction business in Colorado Springs, but he's super talented, very quick, big. So I make him train with me sometimes, and every once in a while he plays in a tournament. But it's great when we get all the boys together and have a little family feud. I mean, family fun, playing pickleball, and we're all pretty competitive, so it's pretty wild and crazy out there. But we have the ball, and we've just transferred our passion from beach volleyball, where we used to play around beaches around the world, to pickleball that we get to play together when we're all together. So
I love it. And recently I saw a video that you posted of the whole family playing pickleball on a single court, like one court. It looked like in a backyard. Is that at your home in Colorado, or?
It is. It's about 5 minutes from my house. A friend of mine's named Mitch Yellen's place, and he's got a court, and I helped build it. But basically, they were all home, which is really rare because, as you know, Daniel lives in Japan. John lives in Oregon. Stephen is in Colorado Springs. So when we get them all home, we try to do that. But yeah, Randy Coleman filmed that. We had an absolute blast, and I'll tell you more about that later, the rest of the story. But Mitch is now building 8 indoor-outdoor pickleball courts in Colorado Springs. So that's going to continue that tradition a little bit, and hopefully bring a lot more friends in town to play with us.
That's awesome. So I've got a bunch of questions for you, Scott, but one of the questions I also like to ask in the very beginning, and I'm going to pop it up here on the screen, but is, what do you love the most about pickleball? Because I think each person has a unique story about pickleball and how they fell in love with it. But what stands out the most to you about the sport of pickleball?
Wow, that's a tough one, Scott. I mean, I would say that for me, I mean, I'm a competitor. I love the competition. I mean, anybody that knows me knows I just love to compete. So I'm just having so much fun out there competing. But really, deep down in my heart, I'm going to say it's the people. You know, the friendships, people that I've met from all over the world, from guys like you in Florida to friends in Singapore, Philippines, and Thailand this year. Got friends in Europe, you know, all over the U.S., Mexico, Canada. It's just been, you know, a great source of friendship. My buddy John Anderson said, Scott, remember, it's always about the relationship. About 5 years ago when I was first really getting into it. And sometimes I've forgotten that. I get so competitive. But really, at the end of the day, the people I've met and the experiences I've had with them on the pickleball court have been something that I'll never, ever, ever forget, always cherish.
That's awesome. I love it. And as you know, 2020 has been a very unique year for you, myself, along with millions of other people across the country and the world. So I want to know, what has Scott Moore been doing right now during the COVID pandemic, this time where it's unprecedented to everyone?
Yeah, it's been a rough year in a lot of ways. But I have been extremely fortunate, Scott, in that when the pandemic hit, my son, John, his wife, wonderful wife, Micaiah, and my beautiful little grandbaby, Holland Grace, were in Colorado Springs living at our house. They were about to move to go to Europe for 6 months to lead a bunch of pickleball trips, but they all got canceled. So they got stuck with us for about 3.5 months. And I mean, I was totally captured by my little granddaughter. We used to sit on the porch every day, just hang out. And it was an absolute joy to do that before they, like I said, broke my heart and moved to Oregon a couple of months ago. But so that was a big part of it. The second thing is that I'm kind of a serial entrepreneur. And my latest venture, which I said I would never do, was to build a house. I'm actually the general contractor building my wife's dream house, which is a challenge to say the least. Way over my head. way over my head, hundreds and hundreds of decisions that I never dreamed I'd have to make. I almost gave it up one day when she took me to the lighting store. We spent 4 hours picking out lights, and I was just like, somebody please shoot me if I do. It's been a labor of love. I actually have enjoyed it a lot more than I thought. People said, your marriage may not last, but we've actually kind of tag teamed it. She's awesome on the interiors and the colors, which I don't really care that much about. I've handled the subs. We have a construction business, so we had some subs already. And I think I'm about 6 weeks away from getting this done. Don't know how in the world it ever would have happened if I'd been traveling around playing pickleball. So it was kind of a blessing in disguise that I was stuck at home, because I actually was at my house almost every day, having to make all kinds of decisions and just hate to think. I mean, I made some major rookie mistakes, but they could have been actual disasters probably if I hadn't been there. So those are the two things we mainly did: hung out with Holland and built my house. The third would be, worked on training for pickleball. I've really worked hard on my game, my doubles game. Gotten to do a lot of drilling. I have a sort of a coach that's taken under his wing. We play almost every day. And he's helped me a lot with especially my short game, which I'll tell you about more later if you want to know.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that kind of is a good segue to the next question, which is, how does it feel to be back on the pickleball court competing again, not only just in even rec games and with people, but really what I'm asking is about the tournament scene, being back out, and we'll talk about the Newport in a second, but Newport Beach, but talk about that for a minute.
About Newport or being back on?
I'm sorry, just about being back on the pickleball court for right now and how that feels.
Yeah, for me, it's like, something really, really special had been taken away, and now I got it back again. So I think I probably, Scott, appreciate it more than before. Before, I think I took it for granted. But now it's like, wow, the excitement almost of when I first started playing has come back. And I'm like, I really can get better. I mean, I'm not getting any younger. I'm 58, and the guys coming into my play group are getting tougher and younger every year. But it's like, I know I can still hang with these guys. I still belong. And I've been able to work on some things that I've never really spent as much time as I have working on it. And getting to go to Newport, as you kind of asked about, and to try them out and see how they worked was a thrill. I mean, I can't tell you how fun it was. If you don't mind, at Newport, I played with Thunder, Gonzalez, Rich, and I had become pretty good friends. Talk about playing together sometime, but you never really know the first time you play with somebody. And we just gelled and played incredibly well, and got, as you know, we won the gold medal. And I really wasn't sure what to expect. So it was a huge, pleasant surprise in every way. And then Yvonne King and I played mixed doubles, and we also somehow came out of nowhere and won the gold medal. Now that was an even bigger surprise, because I think, the number one seeds, Dave Weinbach and Chris Anderson, everyone thought were the prohibitive favorites, and we actually beat them in 3. Yvonne really stepped up, and I saw her just take a whole new level of belief in herself. She really now believes she belongs with the big girls, so to speak. And she was amazing, just hung in there all day, and we got through it. And it was like, wow, this is so fun. It was like, kind of going back to 6-7 years ago when I was first winning those medals, that kind of thrill, just because it'd been so long since we played. So yeah, it was a blast. I love that venue. It was beautiful. Had a wonderful host day family. And it was I just couldn't have asked for more. It was awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, anytime you're competing in the tournament, I don't ever consider you an underdog. I'll be honest. Since I've been around the sport the last 4 years, you've been a pretty dominating force on the pickleball court. So it's pretty rare that you're not medaling. You may not always get the gold, but you're usually on the podium in some capacity. But watching you play and compete at Newport Beach with number one in men's with a new partner in Rich, Lopez, but also I remember seeing you and Yvonne compete and win the gold at the World Pickleball Championships back in December in Punta Gorda. And those were some epic battles that you guys had there.
really did. We really did. So yeah, Yvonne and I now have kind of learned each other's style, and we're clicking pretty well. So that's really been fun to kind of get a regular partner again and have somebody that I know what she's going to do and she knows what I'm going to do, and we're just getting better and better. So that's been really a fun thing.
Absolutely. And of course, questions pop into my head as we talk about things, but talk about some of the new senior players that are coming on the scene that are causing some ripples and things like Rich Lopez coming on the scene, guys like Mircha, and you've got Dave Fleming. And I mean, there's tons of these guys that are coming on the scene now. Paul Olin's another one.
Yeah. I mean, it's like every year there's a couple new guys that just come out of nowhere and they're really good. I think, it's easier for guys like myself and Micho and Paul that are tennis players to get really good in singles initially. And those guys, have been beating me, and they're really tough. And, Micho and I actually are 2-2, but he just smoked me in Newport. And Paul and I have had some battles. He's beaten me the last 4 or 5 times, but I beat him the first couple or 3. But anyway, it's just getting tougher and tougher on the single side. Absolutely. But even the doubles guys, I mean, Dave Fleming is right up there, as you mentioned, and John Sperling. And there's just a bunch of guys, Scott Crandall, who I'm playing a couple tournaments with this year. John Sperling, I'm actually going to play with as well, that are just really picking up the doubles quick as well. So it's just so competitive and so fun. And the nice thing about it is, I mean, they're all just really great guys. And, that's what's a little different about pickleball as well, is that, I don't really look at these guys as my enemies or whatever. I mean, they're really making me better. They're pushing me to be the best I can be. That's what I'm striving for. And, getting to compete against them and work hard and stay in great shape. I mean, this is just benefiting me as well as the whole pickleball community, and hopefully the audience that gets to watch your wonderful live streams, because you do an awesome job at getting that out. And, I'm still having the time of my life playing, and it just keeps getting better because the competition gets better every year, and I got to keep up with it. So
yeah, and that leads me into my next question, which is funny that you keep bringing up like staying in shape and things like that. Like, what does Scott Moore do? What do you do to stay on top of the game and to make sure that you're not falling behind with these other competitors coming on the scene? I know we talked about the B3 bands. I've gotten on board with those. I think that's an incredible thing. So talk about some of that stuff and what you're doing at your senior pro level.
I'll take you back 7-8 years ago. I mean, I was about 25 pounds heavier. Wasn't really overweight, but I'd gained a pound a year for the last 20 or 25 years. My wife's a good cook, and I was playing tennis with my kids some, but I didn't have anything on my own. So first thing I did was get a trainer, and he was like, "You're an accident waiting to happen. You need to work and get in shape." So I started eating better, working out, doing cardio, doing weights and all that kind of stuff. And within 6 months, I'd lost 20 pounds. So that was the start. And then, as 2 years ago, I found these B3 blood flow restriction bands. And they were like a shortcut, because when I was traveling on the road, I wasn't very consistently working out. I needed a gym to work out. And I was working out for about, 30, 45 minutes every time, 4 or 5 days a week when I was home, maybe 6, 7. But whenever I traveled, I would miss. And sometimes I just didn't have time or whatever. So these B3 bands, basically, which were invented in Japan, and so I had heard about them, and used by Japanese Olympic athletes and for rehab and all kinds of stuff, became portable, and they became safe because you can blow them up. They have individual chambers. So I put them on my arms and legs when I work out. And effectively what they do, Scott, is they restrict the blood flow into my muscles. And so your muscles think they're working much harder than they are, and they just respond by adapting. They get stronger. And without using any weights and loading them or any micro tearing, now I can use just elastic bands or my body weight, and in 15 or 20 minutes get a better workout than I've ever had before, both physiologically and cardio. So it's like, and I describe them as like when I moved to Colorado and Daniel and I were playing tennis for his workout, we could hardly run. I mean, it was like, who turned off the oxygen? And that in 6 months, we didn't even notice it anymore because our lungs just adapted. They got stronger. What the B3 bands have done for me is basically make my muscles and my cardio stronger as well as I've worked out with them. And the human body is just incredibly made, and it just responds and gets stronger given the stimulus. So in a much shorter amount of time, I've gotten in much better shape than I've ever been in my life, thanks to these bands. And I think, honestly, at 58 years old, I am in the best shape I've ever been in my life. And I work at it almost every day. I'll work out. Sometimes I play pickleball just in the leg bands. Sometimes, like today, before getting on a plane, I worked out with my daughter, Meredith, for like 20 minutes, and I'm good to go. My basement. So I'm not dependent on a gym anymore. I put them in my suitcase wherever I go. We were in Turkey last year, no workout facility, nowhere to go. I ran up and down the stairs for 20 minutes. So I now am just more consistent, and it's just easier to work out and more effective bands than anything else I've ever found. So I describe them, Scott, as basically a way to facilitate people taking responsibility for their health. The huge health benefit is that because of this vigorous exercise, your brain thinks it's working super hard, and it sends a message to your pituitary gland, which releases human growth hormone. It's the most natural way to get additional human growth hormone, which is the best hormone for your body. It's anti-aging, anti-inflammatory, good for your heart, good for your bones. It's incredible. So anyway, so it's just an amazing discovery for me. Has totally changed my life, and the best, like I said, fitness and perhaps health little tool I've ever found or experienced. So that's
if there's somebody watching right now that listened to what you just talked about, and they are maybe somebody like myself who just doesn't enjoy going to the gym all the time and spending 2 hours at the gym or whatever, can they reach out to you to find out some more information about maybe purchasing those bands?
There's a ton out there on blood flow restriction training, but they can reach out to me. I got a little website at scott.getonthebands.com. There's a 4-minute video that really does a great explanation of what this is and how it benefits you. So just watch that video, do your research, and if you want information, you can reach out to me or you as you're a fellow user, and I can definitely fill them in. I mean, not only are they great for fitness, but they're also, and initially were developed for rehab. So I actually fractured my heel about 3 weeks before nationals last year. The doctor told me you can't play, and I just rehabbed them with the bands. And within 10 days, I was back on the court. Was able to play 4 out of 6 events with a what was a fractured heel. And also during that tournament, tore my meniscus in my left knee. I did after an MRI. My doctor said you need surgery. I said, well, I'm going to try to rehab it with these bands I've got because they increase the blood flow and human growth hormone, blah, blah, blah. So sure enough, I started rehabbing with them, and I have been able to totally avoid surgery. I don't have any pain right now. May still be torn, but it's been rehabbed and so much stronger around my knee that I don't think I'm going to have surgery, hopefully. So, there's just lots and lots of really cool benefits about these bands.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people I see on the pickleball forum all the time. Some of the most common injuries are knee related, elbow related, lower back, stuff like that. That's great.
Yeah, people with these bands, they're rehabbing injuries in half the time. That's initially one of the things that I had heard about them. And sure enough, as I did the research in Japan and in the U.S., there's lots and lots of testimonies about that kind of stuff. Not to mention losing 20 or 30 pounds. Not to mention, like I said, getting stronger and more fit, cardio-wise.
Right. And like you touched on 7 or 8 years ago when you got into the sport, you could almost show up to a tournament for the weekend and not have prepared. And I don't want to downplay the competition back then or anything like that, but just you could show up a couple of days before, you could start practicing a little, maybe be a little out of shape, and you could still win. But these days, it's not good enough anymore to just show up and win.
Not even close. Whole different world. You absolutely nailed that on the head. It is a whole different world out there.
Which brings me to my next question for you. Oh, go ahead.
No, I just said which is a good thing. Go ahead.
Definitely. Well, so that leads me to you're back in Chicago and you're defending that Triple Crown that you got. And I want to know just how it feels to be back in Chicago. You're one of the hosts of the Chicago Open. So talk about that experience and just what you're doing to prepare mentally and physically to defend that title.
Yeah, I mean, Chicago, I actually lived here for 6 months when I was first married. So it has kind of a special place in my heart. We had such a great time. It was before kids and just exploring the city. It's a cool city. But basically, last year, the first Chicago Open, everything just fell into place for me. And I was fortunate enough to win a Triple Crown. It was brutally hot. This year we got a lot better weather, so I'm very excited about that because it was hot and humid. And I mean, there were guys literally having heat strokes last year. But this year we got perfect weather, it looks like, and it's just a great venue. I'm excited to be back on the APP tour. I think Frank and I are going to have a blast, hosting this. Hopefully, I'll get in the broadcast booth with you a little bit to hang out. I'm playing with Steve Cole and Yvonne Tink, two of my go-to partners that I've had a lot of success with. More competition, but I think it's just going to be an absolute great venue. I mean, last year Ken Herman did a phenomenal job. We had a dunk tank, we had exhibitions. We got a lot going on. It's really just a fun place, fun time, and the food in Chicago. I mean, it's world class, and that's one of my favorite things. I am a foodie, so getting to eat some really good Chicago ethnic food is something I always get excited about. So yeah, it's going to be an absolute blast, and I'm really excited to be back.
Definitely. And it's Wednesday, so you're already in Chicago. So talk about preparing and preparation going into a big money tournament. How does that play into you getting comfortable with your partners or even with the facility? Do you need those extra couple of days to kind of get, a day or two in advance?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of alluded to it. I mean, in the good old days, I'd show up the day before and, maybe hadn't practiced or played with my partner before and, was fortunate enough to win a lot of the time. But now, I want to spend a day or two getting acclimated. There's altitude and no humidity in Colorado. Here we got humid, no altitude. So it's just different. So I want to play for a day or two before and kind of get myself basically acclimated to the court, to the environment, and to my partner possible. So I'm going to get to play tomorrow with Yvonne some, and then Steve's coming in. Hopefully we'll see how long the mixed doubles goes Friday, but we'll hopefully get to play a little before we hit the courts on Saturday in the men's doubles. And same thing, tomorrow I'll play some singles and some mixed doubles. So just kind of trying to get everything ready and get used to the environment that we're in.
Absolutely. And one side question, because we were talking about the Chicago Open and how you love that venue and the experience you had last year. How does a guy like yourself, a 21-time national champion, a 7-time Triple Crown winner, how do you go about making your calendar for the new year, say 2021? Do you sit down in front of a calendar and a computer and go, okay, this is where I want to be? Like, how do you make those decisions is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's, as you know, the pro tournaments have increased so much. Obviously this year, I got out my eraser a lot because a lot of them got canceled. But next year, 2021, I have already decided on, I can't remember if it's 22 or 23 tournaments that I'm supposedly playing. And I already have men's and women's partners in all 23 of those. So it's kind of
you
crazy.
Go ahead and line up your partners in advance that far.
Yeah, I mean, I have never, Scott, done it this far in advance, but because of the fact that the competition is getting so much stronger, and there's certain people that I'm really liking to play with, or hoping that I'm going to play well with. Next year, I'm playing mainly with a men's partner I've never played with before, which will be interesting. But that you got to commit early, or you can get left out, and so. I've been fortunate enough to have all my partners lined up for next year. So that kind of keeps the guesswork out of it. I got to get permission from my boss, my wife, to go. But fortunately, as you know, she loves pickleball, maybe more than I do. And so she likes to go as well and be there. So she'll be there for most of them with me playing, with her group. So it's just a perfect storm because we are in the process of building a house that we think we can lock and leave and just go, and we'll be gone a lot of the year, and just having the time of our lives playing different tournaments with a couple of men and a couple of women that I feel really good about playing with next year.
That's awesome. And I want to ask another question to you, because you touched on this early in the interview about you being a businessman as well as a fierce competitor. And how do you, as a fierce competitor, how do you balance the two of spending time working on your business? You have a couple businesses within pickleball. You also have a construction business. How do you balance all that as a guy who's busy? And does that make sense what I'm asking you?
Yeah, it totally does. I mean, when I describe myself, more than a pickleball player, I describe myself as a serial entrepreneur. I have started, over 40 businesses in the last 40 years, and it's just something I do. It's almost like a sickness. I can't help myself. So, it just comes naturally. I do have, within pickleball now, 5 or 6 different businesses, depending on how you count them. And, it's just been so much fun and just such a part of who I am. But to answer your main question is, my boys have come along and have basically stepped up and kind of taken the day-to-day from Pickleball Trips, which was the business that Daniel and I started 4 years ago. Now John is taking my spot, and I get to just kind of watch them and assist them and volunteer. Hey, I want to go to Thailand this year. Take me as your assistant, and let them do all the details and the heavy lifting, if you will. And shockingly to me, my youngest son, who I didn't think could use a screwdriver, has taken over my construction business. He moved home about a year ago and said, "Hey, Dad, I want to take over the family business." And I was kind of looking for a way out because that was cramping my pickleball lifestyle. And I had a business doing decks and decorative concrete for 15 years, and I would run it 8 months of the year, shut it down, and then go south for the winter and play pickleball. But he's come alongside and has just really taken it to a whole new level and is taking the responsibility so that I don't have the day-to-day responsibility anymore. So it's freeing me up to go start new businesses, go play more pickleball, go take more trips, whatever, we find to do, which I keep finding new things. But that's just kind of part of who I am. So it's sort of freeing me up to do new things. And I get bored real easy.
And that leads me to the next question, which is, I heard that you're involved with a pickleball related venture in Arizona, and you and I kind of spoke about that briefly off camera. Tell us about that new venture and what you've got going on in Arizona.
Yeah, I'm super excited about that, Scott. My wife and I have traveled around Southern California, Arizona, Mexico, Hawaii, all over, teaching, training, and doing tournaments, the past 6-7 years, mainly a lot of time during the winter. And in the back of our minds, we're like, we'd love to find a place where we could kind of migrate to for the winters, but had never found, the perfect spot for us until I think we found Prescott, Arizona. And my good friend, Jim Thomas, who was playing with Susan a few years ago, mixed doubles, and now has come to some of our advanced camps and was in Ixtapa with us last year, sort of said, "Hey, Scott, I need your help. I'm looking for a pro to team up with. You're the guy I want to basically help me develop the premier pickleball destination resort in the world. And what we're going to do to make this unique from anything else out there is we're going to develop it and put in 80 RV spots and put in 40 casitas so that people can come for as long as they want. And we'll have 24 pickleball courts, 20 of them covered, so they can play pickleball as long as they want. We'll put in a phenomenal restaurant, lots of other amenities from golf simulators to hot tubs to yoga centers and pro shops, and we'll have basketball, badminton, volleyball courts, and we'll have this all in one area in Prescott. And I visited Prescott. We'd been to Sedona a lot of times. Hadn't really spent much time in Prescott, but I went and taught last couple of years there and really liked it. And I just thought, this is my answer of what I've been looking for. I can now go down and be kind of a activity / pickleball director when I'm there, but not have day-to-day responsibilities. Daniel and John and I were talking about needing a domestic, basically a place in the States that we could make our pickleball home. And this is perfect for that. So we'll actually bring people from Asia, from Europe, and all over the U.S. Will be able to come and stay and play pickleball in Prescott. It's called Aspire with an E. Eat, Stay, Play. AspireSports.com. And all three of those things are going to be fantastic there. Hopefully we're going to be able to open it next summer. We're doing the fundraising and the getting the permit going through the city right now. If all goes well, we'll break ground by the end of the year and be open next summer. So I'm pretty stoked about that. I think it's going to blow people's minds. The RV part really makes it a very profitable, because that business, there's a shortage of RV parks, and with COVID, that's gone through the roof. So I think it's going to be profitable. It's going to be long term. It's going to be fun. It's going to be amazing. So hopefully everybody listening will come play with me down there. I'll be there most winters. Looks like.
I definitely am going to put that on my calendar to come visit. I actually have not played pickleball in Arizona yet, and so that's on my pickleball bucket list. And so I would love nothing more than to cross that off my list next year when you guys try to open that.
I'll get
an amazing thing.
Red carpet for you, buddy.
I love it. I love it. I got to get me an RV.
Yeah, you can get RV, or you can sit in a casita like me. But basically, we're talking with Ken Herman about doing, after our grand opening, doing an APP event there in October of next year. It's not official yet, but we're getting pretty close. So hopefully that'll happen as well, so that everybody will get to come see it that wants to.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. I love it. And this is a question that just popped into my head. You've been around the sport 7-8 years now. You've seen, just like I have, the significant growth of our sport over the last, 3 or 4 years. Really, it's taken off and it's trending upwards, and it's not slowing down. So what do you see over the next, in Scott Moore's opinion, what do you see over the next 3 to 6 years with the continued growth of our sport?
Yeah, it's just been mind-boggling, Scott, the last 3 to 6 years, what's happened and the difference between that first tournament I was in 2013 and now. But I think it's just going to continue to accelerate. I mean, as we're getting great live stream TV type coverage, as the money is getting better, the sponsorships are getting bigger, the venues are getting nicer. I mean, that Newport Beach venue, I was there a year ago, and it was temporary courts, and now it's absolutely beautiful. But that is just popping up all over the country, and it's getting more and more all over the world. So I just think more people internationally in particular are going to get in the game. It's going to make it more of an international sport. It's still America-centric. So I see that changing over the next 3 to 6 years as, outside the U.S. really embraces it and starts getting some momentum. I see more professional athletes from other sports getting in, whether it's tennis, badminton, racquetball, squash players that are, just phenomenal athletes, maybe volleyball, other sports, and just taking it to a whole new level we've never seen before. So it's just going to keep getting better and better and bigger and more money involved. And, at every level, it's just going to improve and be funner and a better experience. If that's possible.
I know if that's even possible. Yeah. I know when I interviewed your son, Daniel Moore, several months back, I asked him this question about, did he think pickleball could eventually get to the Olympics, become an Olympic sport? And he had an interesting answer. So I was just going to ask you the same question. Do you foresee pickleball eventually getting into the Olympics?
Yeah, I do. I have no idea the timeline, but I think, because the Asians in particular are so avid at table tennis and badminton and dominate the world, that once they kind of get some momentum, that it's just going to take off over there. Europe has already kind of blossom. We were at the Bainbridge Cup a couple years ago. I think there were people from, I don't know, 13 or 14 countries. So it's starting to happen, but it takes a while, just like in the U.S., to get that groundswell. But once the groundswell happens, I mean, you can't stop it. And I think we're there in the U.S. It may take 5, it may take 15 years, but once we've got it in 50, 60, 70 countries and it's growing, I mean, I don't see how it could not make the Olympics eventually.
Yeah, I agree. And Daniel was a little more optimistic that it could be as soon as possibly 2028, but he not necessarily be in the Olympics, but that they would be testing it as a sport possibly. So who knows the actual timeline? But I agree with you. I think the growth has been significant and it's going to continue to grow. And actually, we're going to talk about Daniel and the pickleball trips here shortly. But when I talked with him in the interview, he travels a lot internationally, and he spends, I think what he said was 10 months out of the year in Japan. So he of all people has a pretty good pulse on international pickleball stuff. And
definitely. I mean, I kind of describe him as the face of pickleball in Asia, though he's not Asian. But basically, he's traveled to I don't know, 7, 8, 9 different countries over there teaching or playing pickleball, and they keep asking him back and new places, and he's going out and exploring all these different places. It's obviously a little tougher with COVID, but so it slowed down a little bit this year. But once that's over and behind us, I mean, it's just going to continue to explode. He was in China a couple years ago. I think his first guy to ever teach pickleball in China, and the government was just like asking him all kinds of questions about what we just talked about, the Olympics. And if they ever get an Olympic sport, you can bet some of these countries like China are going to go all in, and it's going to be huge. And so everybody will try to keep up with that, and it's going to get bigger and bigger. But it's just fun to see the growth, fun to be part of it. He started pickleball in Kenya a couple years ago. We had a trip planned and sold out for Kenya this year. We're going to be the first ever pickleball safari trip. I had spent some time with him in Kenya when he lived there for 2 years. So we had an absolute ball in a safari. A little side story that I never forgot, but I just love this story, was we were in our tent right outside the safari grounds. And, about 2 a.m, we started getting buzzed by a mosquito. Literally kept us up all night. We were worried about malaria. And at about 5:30 in the morning, I looked over at him and said, "Dude, are you awake?" He goes, "Yeah, I've been up all night." I said, "Me too. That darn mosquito." And he goes, "Dad, I forgot to tell you the African proverb I learned when I was here." I was like, "Well, what's that?" He goes, "Well, if you ever think you're too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito." And I went, "Oh, I'll never forget that." So I love that. I love that, Scott. And the reason is because sometimes Daniel is out there on his own, cruising around Asia. John's doing the same thing in Europe. Sometimes, we all feel like maybe we can't make that big a difference. But just like my buddy John Foss, who 8 years ago introduced me to the game of pickleball, he changed my life forever. I am totally indebted to that guy. He had no idea. I had no idea where I was going. But we can all make a difference, one life at a time, introducing this great sport to people. And lots of people's lives have been saved by it. I mean, I've known people that have lost so much weight, or that had, serious diabetes, that recovered from it because of pickleball and so forth. So we're not just talking about a fun time here, but this is a life changer. It's a way to make new friends for people that are isolated. It's a way to get off the couch for people who need exercise. It's everything that, you could imagine in a sport and more. So I just encourage you, everybody out there listening, keep on keeping on, and be friendly. Don't be shy about sharing it. Share the pickleball love. And it's just something that really is helping a lot of people.
Absolutely. And I know for me, I don't know if you're like this, but I'm quite a talker, and I love people and love getting to know new people. And so there's nothing better for me, Scott, than getting on a plane. This is pre-COVID, obviously, but getting on a plane next to 2 people who have no idea what pickleball is. And I'm wearing a pickleball hat, a pickleball shirt, and they just, they're stuck with me for a couple hours, just chit-chatting about pickleball. And usually I make a new friend or 2 out of that situation. So it's pretty fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that too. Absolutely.
So tell me real quick, because you brought up Daniel. I know Daniel, like we talked about many times now, he travels all over the world, and you guys have a company called Pickleball Trips, and you guys
Yes.
are well known for this. What's been going on? I know COVID kind of slowed everything down for everybody, but do you guys have things in the works? Like, what does that look
Yeah,
like?
absolutely. We had 12 international trips outside the U.S. planned this year. Almost all of them were sold out before COVID. Now we've had to cancel about 9 of those, but we've got 2 or 3 that we're still hoping to do this year. The one is a trip to Belize, and my brother goes to Belize almost every year, and he describes this. He's never stayed anywhere other than a 5-star resort, I don't think. He describes this place we found as the nicest house in all of Belize. It's got a tennis court, so we'll have 2 pickleball courts there. It's like a 4-bedroom house with our own chef, our own boat, our own everything. Unfortunately, Daniel had first dibs on leading that trip, so I'm out of that one. But we're only taking 10 people. Looks like it's going to happen. That's going to be in November, right after when Nationals was supposed to be. But the consolation prize for me, which really isn't a consolation prize, but it is Bermuda. We've been looking at opening up a trip to Bermuda. I was there 40 years ago for my high school graduation trip, and literally the pink sand. It was phenomenal. We were contacted by some guys in Bermuda about doing a trip there, so we had it all planned and everything. And then COVID hit, but it looks like we're going to get reopened. They controlled it there, so it looks like I'm going to get to lead the Bermuda trip, while Daniel is leading the Belize trip. And John and I, we've got 12 or 13 people signed up, but John and I may do that Bermuda trip. And then one of my go-to places that I just love, I mean, we all speak Spanish, so we love Mexico and just the old Mexico, but is Cabo. Not Cabo proper, but we found a place in between Cabo, San Jose, and San Lucas del Cabo on the beach with a tennis court. They're actually building pickleball courts. I don't know if they'll be done in time for our trip or not. But in December, we have 2 weeks planned down there. I already have several friends and people that have signed up for that. It's the perfect location for Cabo. I mean, it is a little different in that we do a lot of pickleball there. But we do go into the town. We show you Cabo. We show you Cabo San Jose. It's kind of like the best of Mexico because it's still got the old Mexico feel, but it's safe and smaller. Where we go in San Jose, and we know places to go. The $20 massages and the 5-6 hours of pickleball instruction. Daniel and I will lead that, and John probably as well. We'll take 15, 20 people on that one. So those are the first 2 weeks of December, and that's basically the rest of our year. If it happens, and it looks like, knock on wood, that things are going to happen. So.
Absolutely, and also, go ahead.
Yeah, then next year we'll be back on for a dozen trips. We do, our flagship trip maybe is Japan, just because Daniel lives there, and we do Thailand, and we're going to do New Zealand, and we do 4 or 5 places, maybe 6 in Europe, and so on and so forth. But the other crazy thing that's happened is that all 3 of myself, Daniel, and John, we are all 3 in the housing business right now. I told you I'm building a new one, and John has bought his mother-in-law's house, is fixing that up. He's got a little extra room. He's wanting to do a pickleball bed and breakfast. Daniel bought a 6-bedroom house in Japan. He's fixed up. He's hoping to build 2 pickleball courts there to have the first ever pickleball B&B in Japan. And if my wife lets me, I'll have a little pickleball B&B at my house in Colorado Springs, because we got a pickleball court in our neighborhood, and they're supposed to build 4 to 6 more next year. So I got to get permission from the boss on that one, but looks like we're all going in the same direction with a little pickleball B&B coming our way in addition to the trip and the Aspire Sports.
I love it, man. That's incredible. Also, real quick, because you were talking about a lot of the different businesses, I thought I saw that you guys started something new and recently with online coaching. Is that part of the equation now, that you guys did some online teaching?
Yeah, it is actually. I have a friend named Dustin who he and his son took a clinic from me. I think it was last year in Sisters, Oregon, near Bend, and just super enthusiastic, great guys. And he approached me and said, "Scott, this material needs to get out there. What would you think about partnering with me, you and Daniel, and us making a pickleball master class, marking it online? And I said, I've never thought about it, but let me talk to Daniel. And Daniel was all in. So during nationals last year, we actually filmed a couple days of, all of our material, basically the drills, the games, some of the stuff that sets us apart. We've had these 10 pickleball principles that we based it off of that kind of is, we think, the most systematic approach to learning pickleball there is, everything we've learned in the last 7 years. And we just had a lot of fun doing it, putting it together. He hired a professional photographer and put it out there. And, it took a little while. At first, it was like, well, looks like it's going to be okay. But, we sold maybe 10 first month, which was December, 10 in January or whatever. And then all of a sudden, COVID hit, and we started selling literally hundreds and hundreds of these classes. And it has gone ballistic, way beyond our expectation. And now we've sold hundreds and hundreds of these courses, and people are loving it. So I was back out in Sisters last month visiting my granddaughter and did another clinic. And Dustin came out and filmed me doing an actual live clinic as well. We've actually added that to the master class. So it has just taken off, like I said, beyond our imagination. Been a lot of fun. It's really been helpful for Daniel because he basically lost his whole income with pickleball trips, and it's replaced it and allowed him to be able to fix up his house and more. So I got a little discount code if somebody is interested and wants to email me at pickleballscott@gmail.com. For listening on this broadcast, I'll put in a discount if any of our listeners are interested.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, you guys have your hands in a little bit of everything, from construction to multiple pickleball businesses. The Moore family, to me, you guys are just a staple in our sport. I love just being able to chat with you, catch up with you. And one last question, kind of a somewhat of a personal question, but really just kind of off the beaten path of pickleball. Do you have any hobbies that you do outside of pickleball that you enjoy, like maybe golf or basketball or whatever? I mean, just didn't know if you want to share something like that.
Yeah, that's a good one. I had a whole lot more before pickleball. I was into golf. I was into snowboarding. I was into wakeboarding. And, they kind of went by the wayside a little bit. But in the last 5 or 6 years, as I was trying to, totally focus on being the best pickleball player in the world I could be, and best senior in the world, and maintaining that. But recently, I don't know if it's my granddaughter or what, but I've been like, I can't be one dimensional. So I have started really smelling the roses again and slowing down when I go. Like I was in Minnesota last week teaching clinics, and I water skied and that kind of stuff. I've gotten back into wake surfing. I'm learning to kite surf with my friends down in Mexico. We're teaching me. Darren in San Carlos, and I've been doing that down near Tres Palapas, which is Los Barriles, Mexico. Got great friends down there teaching me. So I'm actually, and my son Steven's into golf. I've been playing a little golf with him again. So I'm actually getting back into some of my old hobbies and a few new ones, just because I realize, hey, I miss some of that stuff. Can't be all pickleball, and so I'm actually really enjoying kind of getting back into some new things. Having a ball doing that.
Yeah, and I think that helps keep fresh perspective. I think sometimes if you get too burned out with one particular thing, it can be kind of not unhealthy, but it can just burn you out a little bit. And so I think that's great. I have found myself also trying to mix things up a little bit. I went paddle boarding with Steve Rose in Florida, and that was fun. That was something I've never really done before, and it was pretty relaxing and kind of a fun thing. So
yeah. Awesome. I agree. Yeah, my buddy Paul Targos has taken me wake surfing, which is basically surfing behind a boat, without a rope, and I've done that a few times and totally love that. So I want to develop that a little more.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just a great feeling, and got to have a special boat to do it, which he does. But anyway, so that's been really fun. So yeah, I'm kind of excited about some new tricks this old dog can learn. Hopefully.
I love it. Have you ever been skydiving?
Oh yeah. So my skydiving story is pretty interesting. It's probably 4 or 5 years ago. I was actually in St. George, and we were doing we had a bunch of dune buggies out in the sand dunes out there, and was super into it. It was Thanksgiving, so I had my whole family out there. Second day we did it, I flipped a dune buggy with my daughter in it and ended up breaking my collarbone and spent 4 hours in the emergency room on Thanksgiving. I've never been so thankful in my life, though, because I didn't hurt her and I didn't get really badly injured, and it was my left side, so I could keep playing pickleball a couple of weeks later. But so I get home from the hospital. I'm in my sling or whatever, and I say to my boys, I'm like, well, I guess my adrenaline junkie days are over. I got to slow down, and I just can't keep doing this stuff and getting hurt because I'm not going to heal up as quick and whatever. And they're like, yeah, right, Dad. So for Christmas that year, they get me skydiving tickets. And I'm like, okay, guys, I thought adrenaline days were over. What is this? They go, we didn't believe you, Dad. We know you got to do this. So Jonathan comes home about 3 months later for his engagement party in March. And I thought we were just going to go show up and skydive, do it dual tandem. He goes, Dad, we got to go train for 4 hours for this skydiving. I'm like, 4 hours? Aren't we just kind of tied to the instructor? He goes, no, we're doing solos. So I went,
oh my goodness.
You got me on a solo and you are, I told you I was done with this. He goes, no, we'll do it. So you go the night before, you spend 4 hours training. 3.5 of them are 19 things that can happen that are bad. There's only one, right? So you barely sleep the night before. But we jump out of the plane, and it was the greatest feeling in the world. That 5 minutes when you're cruising down was just absolutely phenomenal. It was a bucket list item. I checked it off. Will not do it again because stepping out on that plane was one of the tougher things I've ever done. But, man, was it awesome and worth it. So, yeah, I have done that and loved it, and never to be done again by me, probably.
I just had a sneaky feeling you had jumped out of an airplane. I don't know what in my gut told me that, but I love it.
I'll show you the video sometime if you ask me this weekend.
I love it, man. Hey, John Hall said, ask Scott more about his cliff diving with Carrie Germstead in Jamaica. Is there a story behind that?
Yes, there is. I mean, I've never met a cliff I didn't want to jump off of. And Carrie, CJ just wanted to go with me. And so I said, all right, let's do this together. So we did 1, 2, 3 off this famous little bar cliff, and it had an audience of maybe 100 or 200 people. And she hit smack on her fanny. I'm not sharing any secrets, but there may still be bruises. That was a couple years ago. I know purple, she told me. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. My buddy John from Hiawassee, we were in Jamaica together that trip, played on the same team. And I've since been and done a couple of clinics for him. We've played together, I don't know, John, probably 7 or 8 times, and we are undefeated. So I just want to say shout out to John. Miss you, man, and hope you're well in Hiawassee.
That's awesome. Yeah, John Hall has always been just a big supporter of me as well, and just a great guy. I've been to Hiawassee many times, and I have a soft spot for Hiawassee, Georgia. I love it there.
Yep. That's a wonderful place.
That's awesome. Well, Scott, I told you before the interview, I'd love to keep your time valuable. Right out about an hour, we have covered a bunch of topics. I do want to say to everybody that's watching, if you have any follow-up questions for Scott about anything that he talked about, any of his businesses that you want to participate in as far as the pickleball trips, just reach out to Scott on Facebook Messenger, or you can reach him through email. And go ahead and give everybody your email again.
Yeah, my email is pickleballscott@gmail.com. And if you want to see more information on the masterclass, it's highperformancepickleballacademy.com. You can just kind of go. There's a testimonial on there, for people that have had it. And then if you want the discount, just write me and we'll hook you up.
Awesome. Scott, I've enjoyed it. I appreciate your time. Good luck this weekend in Chicago. I hope you get that Triple Crown again, man, to go defend that title.
It'll be tough, but we'll go down swinging if we go down. That's for sure. Thanks, buddy.
I love it. Have a great night, Scott.
Great seeing you. All right. Thanks, Scott.
Yes, sir. All right, guys, that's a wrap. That was Scott Moore, just a phenomenal individual, just a guy who is synonymous with winning in pickleball, and I just really enjoyed that interview with him. I told myself I was going to keep it at an hour. I've done interviews as long as 4 hours. That's Frank Anthony Davis that holds that record, but that is not the case tonight. I am really proud of myself. We covered a lot of topics, got through all my questions for Scott, and now he can hit the sack and get some rest before his tournament this weekend in Chicago. But if you guys have any follow-up questions with him, like I said, reach out to him. Thank you guys for tuning in. It's been a little while since I've done a live interview, so I appreciate you guys and the support and just tuning in, listening to a legend in our sport, Scott Moore. I think he'll end up being in the Pickleball Hall of Fame when he retires. I guarantee you he will make the Pickleball Hall of Fame. There's no question in my mind. So just really enjoyed that. You guys have a great night, and we'll